Tales of 3 Child Molesters and Revenge. These things happened during my high school years, 1980s Australia. The revenge acts were not all mine. One revenge act was done by someone I was friends with at the time. Chester 1 is from my first high school, Chester 2 and 3 from my second high school. For those who have never heard of the term Chester, it is short for Chester the Child Molester, and describes males who perv on minors, specifically the minors they teach. I had come across 3 Chesters during my school years that I recognize as Chesters, so here are 3 separate tales about each. Chester 1. He would sub for PE, sport class, when our teacher wasn't available, but had the habit of walking into the girls' change rooms while we were getting changed, especially after swimming class. The local pools were next to the school, so we would walk back to school wet-wrapped in our towels to shower and change back at school. Chester 1 would just wander in before class without warning us and stand there telling us what we would be doing that day. Or even after class while we changed into uniform or showered, luckily private shower stalls, to give us a rundown on how the class went. He never did this to the boys. Us girls would start getting into our sports uniform at the end of recess or lunch in the girls' bathroom elsewhere and arrive at class ready, then take turns to change back into uniform in the private stalls. He put a stop to that. Eventually I had enough, and so did the other girls, so I spoke to a couple that I was on decent terms with, and we all decided to get word around before the next PE class, which would be swimming. The next PE class we tramped back to the school while wet and wrapped in our towels. Go to the change rooms and get ready for what we know is coming. Him into a space he isn't welcome in. He sauntered in like usual to a barrage of shoes, hard-covered books, wooden pencil cases. They were all the metal at the time in the 1980s, and anything solid that we could throw. Girls throwing things at him from every angle and no escape. He copped a few cuts and bruises from this and tried to give us detention, but we all walked out wrapped in our towels, changed in the other bathrooms around the school. But the idiot went to the principal to report us, saying that we assaulted him, and we were called to see the principal. He was standing there with a grin on his face because he had obviously said something to make himself out as the victim, but us girls had decided to stand up for ourselves. He had told the principal that we assaulted him because he said we couldn't get changed before arriving at class, so we told her why we started changing elsewhere and why we threw things at him. One of the girls even said that he has been invading the girls' change rooms for a long time and not just with our class. Luckily, the principal took us seriously and suspended Chester 1 immediately and investigated with the other classes and found we were telling the truth. He was fired and lost his teaching license. Unfortunately, we don't know about anything else as we were kept out of the fallout.
Chester 2. This Chester was an art teacher who was known to be having a relationship with another teacher. His girlfriend was a very pretty and petite woman who was discreet about their relationship, but word does get around. This Chester would write up really high on the blackboard and choose girls wearing the shortest skirts to clean the blackboard after class. Peer down the blouses of the girls' school shirts. Some girls deliberately left buttons open for him, while some of us would make the point of doing up our top buttons as we walked past him into class. He would also drop pens in front of our tables only to bend down to look under our desks. We learned to keep our knees together and put our jumpers or coats over our laps. A girl in another class, and a year lower, that I was friends with, came to me one day and said that the girls in her class who don't encourage him have had enough and have decided to do something about it. And she would fill me in when it was done. You have no idea how much I was looking forward to this. A few days later during lunch, I see her approaching me with a massive smile and she just bursts out laughing. One of the girls distracted him during class by getting him outside the door for a minute. Then my friend and one other girl went to his chair, quickly squirted around 10 small tubes of fast-acting superglue onto the seat of his chair, while not letting the girls who encouraged Chester know what they were doing. Well, let's just say that he was superglued to his chair right through his pants and didn't realize this until he went to stand up during class. He didn't say anything at the time and stayed put knowing that a student has done this. He didn't leave his seat at all during the lesson and said nothing. I was laughing the whole time while I was told this story. We see teachers running towards the classroom with the teacher in it, and an ambulance arrives during lunch break. The next day, the principal arrived at the class and wanted to know who did this because the culprit owed for new pants and medical treatment because of the glue on the back of Chester's legs. The culprits came forward and told why they did it and that other students would be able to confirm why. Investigation starts, he is fired, student's family replace the pants and cover the cost of the solvent needed to detach him from the chair and pants.
Chester 3. Math Chester was actually a gentleman Chester. His perving was discreet and his usual method was to flick a pen way under the table that a girl is sitting at. He would then excuse himself by saying, "Sorry about that, I'm so clumsy," before literally crawling under the table on all fours to retrieve the item. I had done a couple of things in the past to curb this behavior when it happened to me. I've stood up and moved from my table for a moment as if I was giving him room to collect the dropped item, and even let out a deliberate audible and smelly fart as he was under the table when I was unable to stand up because of where I was sitting. The chair was too close to the wall to get up in time. This time, after the usual gentleman Chester's apology of, "Sorry about that, I'm so clumsy," he dove under the table and I let my leg swing. Hard. So hard that the toe of my Mary Jane school shoe collided with his nose and the back of his head bashed against the underside of the table. My classmates hear the teacher's head collide with the desk and a muffled expletive, then see him on the floor, holding his face in his hands and blood on his hands. I ask someone to go for help fast so he can at least get medical treatment. He looks at me in horror at what I just did because I had always been polite and respectful to him. I just look back with a exaggerated look of horror on my face and just reply, "Sorry about that, I'm just so clumsy." Other girls caught on and it soon got around to many of them that if he dropped something to just say, "You are so clumsy," and start swinging a leg as a signal to don't even try. He stopped trying soon after and was actually a really good teacher apart from the perving. That's probably why I didn't report him, as I felt that he could be redeemed and I was luckily right. Edit. Just in case anyone asks why I don't mention the police, things are different these days in schools. We never found out what happened to the teachers after they were fired, and internet wasn't really as widely used to get word out to others or find out information on the teachers. I was never approached by the police for a statement, so I am guessing that the school didn't go that far.